Wyoming Territory, 1879. The wind swept across the plains with a fury that matched Lily James' own raging thoughts as she stepped off the stagecoach in Sweetwater Springs. At 21, she stood alone, clutching her valise and surveying the dusty main street with apprehension in her deep blue eyes. Her chestnut hair, pinned neatly beneath her bonnet, caught the late afternoon sunlight as she straightened her dove-gray traveling dress. "This is madness," she whispered to herself. Absolute madness. Lily had come west to escape the suffocating grief of Philadelphia society after her parents' deaths, believing that isolation was her only protection against further heartbreak. The telegram from her late father's business associate offering her a position as schoolteacher had seemed like providence, a chance to rebuild her life where no one knew her name or her sorrow. In her mind, the frontier was a place where emotional distance was not just possible but necessary. Love was a luxury that the West, with all its harshness, could not sustain. She adjusted her grip on her luggage, her gloved hands trembling slightly. The journey had been arduous, and doubt now crept in like the evening chill. The small Wyoming settlement appeared rougher than she had imagined. Men in worn hats and dusty clothes moved with purpose along the boardwalks, barely glancing her way. Women were few, and those she saw had a hardness to their features that spoke of difficult lives. "Miss James." A weathered man in a wool suit approached. "Walter Simmons, Town Council. We've been expecting you." "Yes, thank you for meeting me, Mr. Simmons. Schoolhouse is ready. Boarding arrangements at Mrs. Hollister's are set. School starts Monday." His clipped sentences matched his hurried demeanor. 23 children waiting for their education. 23 children. The weight of responsibility pressed on her shoulders. These were frontier children, practical, unrefined. What could she, with her Eastern education and sensibilities, possibly offer them? How could she teach them about a world beyond these plains when she herself felt so lost? "I appreciate the welcome," she replied, forcing confidence into her voice. As Mr. Simmons led her toward Mrs. Hollister's boarding house, Lily maintained her composure despite her inner turmoil. She had come west to disappear, to build walls around her heart that were as impenetrable as the distant mountains. Love had abandoned her when her parents died. Trusting in it again seemed impossible. Better to focus on surviving this wild place than to risk further loss. What Lily James didn't realize, as she walked down that dusty street on her first day in Sweetwater Springs, was that her carefully constructed fortress was about to face its first test. The following day, while exploring the town that would be her new home, disaster struck with shocking swiftness. A team of frightened horses pulling a heavily laden wagon bolted down the main street, the driver thrown clear and helpless on the ground. Lily stood frozen in their path, her mind unable to process the danger fast enough to move her legs. "Look out!" The warning came a split second before strong arms encircled her waist, pulling her forcefully from the path of the oncoming wagon. She felt herself airborne for a heart-stopping moment, then landed roughly against a solid chest as they both tumbled to the safety of the boardwalk. The horses thundered past, dragging the wagon in a cloud of dust and chaos. "Are you hurt, ma'am?" The voice was deep and concerned, with a gentle drawl that marked it as distinctly Western. Lily looked up into eyes the color of summer grass, set in a face that made her breath catch. Her rescuer couldn't have been more than 25, with sun-browned skin and a strong jawline shadowed by the faintest stubble. His expression was etched with worry as he helped her to her feet, his hands steady and careful. I'm quite all right," she managed, though her heart was racing. From the near accident or the proximity of this stranger, she couldn't be sure. "Thank you, Mr. Finn Nash, ma'am." He tipped his hat, revealing dark hair cut short. "Most folks just call me Finn. Lily James. I'm the new schoolteacher." She brushed dust from her skirts, struggling to regain her composure. "I arrived just yesterday. Welcome to Wyoming Territory, Miss James." His smile transformed his face from handsome to breathtaking. "Though I reckon we could have arranged a less dramatic greeting." Despite herself, Lily laughed, a sound she'd almost forgotten she could make. It certainly was memorable. "Those horses spooked at something. Lucky I was coming out of the mercantile." He glanced down the street where men were now catching the runaway team. "First rule of the frontier, always keep your wits about you." "I'll remember that." Their eyes met again, and Lily felt a strange flutter in her chest that contradicted everything she believed about her new life in the West. This was meant to be her sanctuary from emotion, not the birthplace of new ones. Finn Nash tipped his hat again. Better get those horses settled. Good day, Miss James. Mind how you cross the street now. With a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes, he turned and walked toward the commotion. Lily watched him go, his tall frame moving with the easy grace of a man comfortable in his own skin. Cowboys were supposed to be rough, uncouth creatures, not eloquent young men with gentle hands and eyes that seemed to see right through carefully constructed walls. This chance meeting, this moment of danger averted, opened a question in Lily's mind that she wasn't prepared to face. What if everything she believed about life on the frontier, and her place in it, was wrong? The next morning, Lily stood before her classroom of 23 children ranging from 6 to 16 years old. They watched her with expressions spanning from curiosity to outright skepticism. She had spent the previous evening organizing the one-room schoolhouse, arranging her limited supplies, and preparing lessons that would engage children who likely had more experience with cattle herding than reading poetry. "Good morning," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I am Miss James, and I will be your teacher." A boy of about 14 with a shock of red hair raised his hand immediately. "Miss James, my pa says book learning ain't much use when you're branding cattle or fixing fence. What are you going to teach us that's worth sitting inside for?" The directness of the question caught her off guard, but before she could respond, the schoolhouse door opened. Finn Nash stood in the doorway, holding a small wooden crate. "Morning, Miss James," he said, then nodded to the children. "Morning, youngsters." The children's faces lit up. "Morning, Mr. Nash," they chorused with evident affection. "Brought these books from my own collection," Finn explained, setting the crate on her desk. "Figured you might need more reading material." "That's very thoughtful," Lily said, surprised by the gesture. The crate contained well-worn copies of adventure novels, practical guides to Western life, and even a volume of Shakespeare. Finn turned to the red-haired boy. "Tommy Miller, you questioning the value of education already? Your father may be the best rancher in the county, but even he needs to read contracts and figure accounts. And Miss James here has traveled all the way from Philadelphia to teach you. Might be worth listening before deciding it ain't useful." Tommy looked abashed. "Yes, sir." Finn winked at Lily. "These are good kids, Miss James. Smart too, though they hide it well sometimes." He addressed the class again. "You all mind your manners now. Learning's a privilege not everybody gets." After he left, Lily found herself standing a little taller. "Now then, who can tell me what you've been studying before my arrival?" As the day progressed, Lily discovered that these frontier children, despite their rough exteriors, were hungry for knowledge. By afternoon, even Tommy was engaged in a geography lesson about places beyond Wyoming Territory. Walking back to her boarding house that evening, Lily pondered Finn Nash's unexpected appearance. Something about him challenged her belief that emotional distance was necessary for survival in the West. His kindness to both her and the children suggested a depth of character at odds with her preconceptions. Over the following weeks, Lily settled into life in Sweetwater Springs. Her days were filled with teaching, and she found unexpected joy in watching her students' minds expand. But it was her occasional encounters with Finn Nash that increasingly disrupted her carefully maintained emotional barriers. She learned that he ran a modest but successful cattle operation on land inherited from his uncle. Unlike many cowboys who drifted from job to job, Finn had roots in the community. He served on the town council, helped organize the harvest festival, and apparently collected books, a hobby that intrigued her deeply. Their third meeting occurred at the general store on a Saturday afternoon. Lily was selecting writing paper when Finn appeared beside her. "Miss James," he greeted her, hat in hand. "How's school progressing?" "Surprisingly well," she admitted. "The children are more enthusiastic learners than I anticipated. Told you they were smart." His smile made her heart perform that disconcerting flutter again. "Though I hear Tommy Miller's still giving you a run for your money." Lily laughed. "He challenges me, which I actually appreciate. Yesterday he argued quite persuasively that the history of cattle drives deserved as much attention as the Revolutionary War." "And what did you say to that?" "I told him he was right, and assigned him to prepare a lesson on the subject for next week." Finn's laugh was warm and genuine. "Clever teaching, Miss James. As they walked together down the store aisle, Lily found herself revealing more than she intended. I never expected to enjoy teaching so much. In Philadelphia, education was about memorization and proper conduct. Here, it feels essential, as if what I'm teaching matters in their daily lives. It does matter, Finn said seriously. Out here, knowledge is as valuable as any tool. These children need to understand both worlds, the frontier and what lies beyond it. Lily studied him curiously. You speak as though you've seen both worlds yourself. A shadow passed over his features. 2 years at a college back east before my parents died. Came back to help my uncle with the ranch. Never returned to finish. This revelation shifted something in Lily's understanding of him. I'm sorry about your parents. It was a long time ago, he said, but his eyes told a different story. Standing there among the barrels of dried goods and tools, Lily recognized a kindred spirit, someone else who understood loss. The realization was both comforting and terrifying. Miss James, Finn said suddenly, there's a community gathering next Saturday evening. Music, dancing, food. Would you allow me to escort you? The invitation caught her completely off guard. I don't know if that would be appropriate. As the schoolteacher, every schoolteacher I've ever known has attended community gatherings, he countered with gentle humor. It's practically required. How else will you get to know the parents of your students? Put that way, refusing seemed almost irresponsible. Very well, Mr. Nash. Thank you for the invitation. As she walked back to her boarding house, purchases in hand, Lily realized with dismay that she was looking forward to Saturday evening with an anticipation that threatened the very foundation of her reason for coming west. She had sought isolation as protection, yet here she was, willingly stepping toward connection. The community gathering transformed the town hall into a warm haven of lantern light and laughter. Long tables laden with food lined one wall, while at the opposite end, local musicians played lively tunes that had couples spinning across the wooden floor. Finn arrived at Mrs. Hollister's boarding house precisely at 7 o'clock, dressed in a clean white shirt, dark vest, and trousers that had obviously been pressed for the occasion. When Lily descended the stairs in her best dress, a deep blue that matched her eyes, his expression of admiration made her cheeks warm. You look beautiful, Miss James, he said simply. Mrs. Hollister, a widow in her 50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing, gave Finn a meaningful look. Have her back at a decent hour, Mr. Nash. Yes, ma'am, he replied with appropriate seriousness, though Lily caught the hint of amusement in his eyes. The walk to the town hall took them past shop windows and houses glowing with lamplight. The autumn air carried a crispness that hinted at the coming winter. Lily found herself drawing closer to Finn's warmth. Thank you for inviting me, she said. I've been so focused on the schoolhouse that I've hardly met anyone outside of my students and their immediate families. The West can be lonely if you let it, Finn replied. Community is what makes it bearable. That's something the dime novels don't tell you. Out here, we need each other. The statement struck at the heart of Lily's misconception. She had come west seeking solitude, believing it safer, when in fact, interdependence was the true currency of frontier life. At the gathering, Lily was introduced to what seemed like the entire population of Sweetwater Springs. Mothers of her students praised her teaching, farmers discussed the recent harvest, and elderly residents shared stories of the town's founding. Through it all, Finn remained at her side, his hand occasionally resting lightly at the small of her back as he guided her through the crowd. When the music shifted to a waltz, he turned to her with a questioning look. May I have this dance, Miss James? She hesitated only briefly before placing her hand in his. Yes, Mr. Nash. Though I must warn you, it's been some time since I've danced. Just follow my lead, he said, drawing her into his arms. For a cowboy, Finn danced with surprising grace. As they moved across the floor, Lily became acutely aware of his hand at her waist, the subtle scent of soap and leather that clung to him, and the way his eyes never left her face. You're full of surprises, Mr. Nash, she said. First books, now dancing. My mother insisted I learn both. Said they'd make me a gentleman. His expression softened with memory. She was from Boston originally, never quite adjusted to frontier life, but she loved my father enough to try. The intimacy of this shared confidence wasn't lost on Lily. And did you? Become a gentleman, I mean. His smile turned wry. I reckon that's for you to decide, Miss James. As they continued to dance, Lily felt something shifting inside her, as if the careful walls she had constructed were developing hairline cracks. This man, with his unexpected complexity and gentle strength, made her question whether isolation truly was the safest path. The evening ended too soon, with Finn walking her back to the boarding house under a canopy of stars. At the door, he took her hand and pressed it briefly to his lips. "Thank you for coming tonight," he said. "Seeing Sweetwater Springs through your eyes makes me appreciate it anew." "I should be thanking you," Lily replied, her voice softer than intended. "I've enjoyed myself more than I expected." His eyes held hers for a moment that stretched between them like a promise. "Good night, Miss James." "Good night, Mr. Nash." Inside her room, Lily stood at the window, watching his tall figure disappear down the street. The fluttering in her chest had become a persistent ache, a longing she hadn't allowed herself to feel since leaving Philadelphia. She had come west believing that the frontier was no place for love, that surviving here required emotional fortitude above all else. Yet Finn Nash, with his books and his dancing and his quiet strength, was proving that belief dangerously wrong. Autumn deepened into winter, bringing bitter cold and early darkness to Sweetwater Springs. Lily added practical frontier skills to her curriculum: weather prediction, basic medical treatment, preservation techniques, knowing that such knowledge could mean the difference between life and death for her students. To her surprise, she found herself thriving in her role, earning the respect of both children and parents. Her friendship with Finn grew through regular encounters, Sunday walks after church, occasional assistance with school projects, chance meetings on the street that somehow never felt entirely accidental. He brought her books from his collection, and she shared stories of her Philadelphia life. Each conversation, each shared laugh, each moment of unexpected connection weakened her resolve to keep her heart guarded. On a particularly harsh December day, with snow falling in thick curtains outside the schoolhouse windows, Lily was concluding lessons when the door burst open. Finn stood there, snow dusting his shoulders, concern etched on his face. "School's dismissed early today," he announced. "Blizzard's coming in faster than expected. Parents are arriving to collect the younger children. Older ones who live in town can walk home now. The rest will stay at the hotel until it's safe." The children responded with practiced efficiency to this frontier emergency. Within minutes, parents were arriving on horseback and in wagons, bundling their children against the biting cold. "What about you, Miss James?" Finn asked as the last town child departed. "Your boarding house is at the far end of town." "I'll be fine," she insisted, gathering her materials. "It's not that far." Finn's expression hardened with determination. "I didn't pull you from the path of runaway horses just to let you freeze to death in a blizzard. I've got my horse outside. I'm taking you home." Before she could protest further, he'd helped her into her coat and wrapped his own scarf around her neck. Outside, the snow was falling so heavily that visibility had dropped to mere yards. Finn lifted her onto his horse with ease, then mounted behind her. "Hold tight," he instructed, his arms encircling her as he took the reins. The journey through the blinding snow was terrifying. Wind howled around them, stinging their faces with ice crystals. Lily pressed back against Finn's chest, grateful for his warmth and the steady certainty with which he guided his horse through the white void. When they finally reached the boarding house, Finn practically carried her up the steps. Mrs. Hollister opened the door before they could knock, her face a mask of concern. "Thank the Lord," she exclaimed. "I was about to send my son looking for you, Lily. This storm came on something fierce." "Finn brought me safely home," Lily said, her teeth chattering despite herself. "You're not going back out in that," Mrs. Hollister told Finn firmly. "The stable out back has room for your horse. You'll stay in my son's old room tonight." Finn nodded gratefully. "Thank you, ma'am." After settling his horse, Finn joined Lily and Mrs. Hollister in the warm kitchen. They sat around the stove drinking hot coffee while the storm raged outside, rattling windows and howling down the chimney. "Never seen a blizzard set in so quick," Mrs. Hollister said. "Good thing you got to the school when you did, Mr. Nash." "I was worried," he admitted, his eyes meeting Lily's across the table. "When I saw those clouds rolling in." The intensity of his gaze made her look away, uncomfortable with the emotion it revealed. He had worried about her, had ridden through the beginnings of a blizzard specifically to ensure her safety. The realization both warmed and frightened her. Later, when Mrs. Hollister had retired to her room, Lily and Finn sat alone by the stove. The howling wind created a strange intimacy, as if they were the only two people in the world. "Why did you really come to Wyoming Territory, Lily?" Finn asked quietly, using her given name for the first time. It wasn't just for a teaching position. The question caught her off guard. She stared into her coffee cup, debating how much to reveal. "After my parents died, Philadelphia became unbearable. Every street, every social gathering, every family friend reminded me of what I'd lost. I needed somewhere different, somewhere where no one knew me or my sorrow." "So you came to the frontier to disappear," he said, understanding in his voice. "Yes, I thought. I believed that if I kept to myself, focused only on my teaching, I could avoid feeling that kind of pain again." She looked up at him, finding his green eyes intent on her face. "I told myself that the frontier was too harsh for emotional attachments, that survival here required independence above all else." And now, the question hung between them, weighted with possibility. Lily took a deep breath. "Now I'm not so certain. Everything I've seen since arriving suggests the opposite is true. People here depend on each other. They build communities. She faltered. "They love," Finn finished softly, "despite the hardships, or perhaps because of them." The word hung in the air between them. Love, the very thing she had fled west to avoid. "I should get some rest," Lily said suddenly, rising from her chair. "Tomorrow will be challenging with the snow." Finn stood as well, respecting her retreat. "Of course. Good night, Lily." "Good night, Finn." In her room, listening to the storm's fury, Lily pressed her hands to her flushed cheeks. She had come to Wyoming Territory believing that isolation would protect her from further heartbreak, only to discover that human connection was not just possible on the frontier, it was essential. And Finn Nash, with his quiet strength and unexpected gentleness, was rapidly becoming the most essential connection of all. The blizzard raged for 3 days, leaving Sweetwater Springs buried under feet of snow. School remained closed, and Finn stayed at the boarding house, helping to clear paths and check on neighbors. Lily found herself drawn to his capability in crisis, the way he organized the town's young men to distribute firewood to elderly residents, his careful attention to ensuring everyone had sufficient food and water. When the storm finally broke, revealing a crystalline landscape under brilliant blue skies, life in Sweetwater Springs slowly resumed. Finn returned to his ranch, and Lily reopened the school. But something fundamental had shifted between them during those stormbound days, a recognition of possibilities neither had fully acknowledged before. Winter deepened, and Christmas approached. The schoolhouse buzzed with excitement as Lily's students prepared for the annual Christmas pageant. Every child had a role, from the youngest shepherds to Tommy Miller as the innkeeper, a part he complained about until Lily pointed out that it had the most lines to memorize, thereby challenging his intelligence. On the evening of December 23rd, parents and townspeople packed the schoolhouse. Candles glowed from every window, and evergreen boughs decorated the walls. Lily stood nervously at the back, watching her students perform with earnest concentration. When Tommy delivered his innkeeper speech flawlessly, she felt a surge of pride that brought unexpected tears to her eyes. "You've done wonders with them." Finn's voice came softly from beside her. He had slipped in late, still wearing his ranch clothes. "They've done the work themselves," she whispered back, but couldn't help smiling at his praise. After the pageant, as families gathered for cider and cookies, Finn drew Lily aside. "I have something for you," he said. "An early Christmas gift. Would you walk with me?" Outside, the night was clear and bitterly cold, stars scattered like diamonds across the black velvet sky. Their breath formed clouds in the frigid air as they walked toward the church, where a lone lamp burned in the window. "I arranged with Reverend Parker to borrow the church for a moment," Finn explained as he opened the door. Inside, the church was warm and dimly lit by a few lanterns. But what made Lily gasp was the piano, an upright model she'd never seen before, sitting where the Reverend's lectern usually stood. "Where did this come from?" she asked in wonder. "Denver. Had it shipped in on the last train before the snow got too deep." Finn's expression was a mixture of pride and nervousness. "You mentioned once that you missed playing, that your mother had taught you." Lily approached the piano reverently, running her fingers over the polished wood. "But this isn't just for me. This is for the church, for the town." "Yes," Finn agreed. "But I thought I hope you might play it. For services, for school, for yourself. He hesitated. It's my gift to Sweetwater Springs, but I got it because of you. Emotion overwhelmed her as she sat on the bench and lifted the key cover. Her fingers found the notes of Silent Night, filling the small church with music for the first time in its existence. When she finished, she looked up to find Finn watching her with an expression that made her heart race. "Thank you," she whispered. "It's the most thoughtful gift I've ever received." He moved to sit beside her on the bench. "There's something else I want to give you, Lily. Something I've been wanting to say since that blizzard." Her hands stilled on the keys, trembling slightly. "I know you came west to escape pain, to find a place where you could exist without the risk of heartbreak," he said quietly. "But I think you've discovered what I already knew, that the frontier isn't about isolation. It's about finding the courage to build something meaningful in the face of hardship." He took her hand in his. "I'm falling in love with you, Lily James. I have been since I pulled you from the path of those runaway horses. And I hope, that you might be feeling something similar." The words she'd both longed for and feared hung between them in the quiet church. Lily looked into his earnest green eyes and saw a future she hadn't allowed herself to imagine, a life not defined by loss and loneliness, but by love and connection. "I am," she admitted softly, "and it terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I've already lost everyone I ever loved. My parents, my home, my old life. I came west believing that if I kept to myself, I could avoid that kind of pain again." She squeezed his hand. "But you've shown me that isolation isn't protection. It's just another kind of loss." Finn's smile was like sunrise after the longest night. "Does that mean you're willing to risk it? To see where this might lead?" Instead of answering with words, Lily leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle, tentative at first, then deepening as Finn's arms encircled her. When they finally parted, both were breathing unevenly. "I'll take that as a yes," Finn said, his voice rough with emotion. They returned to the schoolhouse hand in hand, arriving just as the Christmas celebration was concluding. Mrs. Hollister gave them a knowing look, but said nothing as they helped clean up after the festivities. That night, lying in bed and listening to the winter wind, Lily thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had come west believing that the frontier was too harsh for love, that survival here required emotional distance. Instead, she had found that the very challenges of frontier life made connection not just possible but necessary, and that her heart, which she had tried so hard to protect, had found its home in the most unexpected place. January brought record cold to Wyoming Territory, freezing lakes solid, and driving wildlife down from the mountains in desperate search of food. Lily's students came to school bundled in layers of clothing, and she kept the stove burning constantly. Finn visited regularly, bringing firewood and staying to assist with lessons or simply to walk her home in the early winter darkness. Their courtship progressed with cautious joy. Sunday dinners at Mrs. Hollister's, sleigh rides through snowy meadows, quiet evenings by the fire discussing books and dreams. Each moment deepened Lily's understanding that the connection they shared was something rare and precious. But winter on the frontier brought dangers as well as joys. In late February, word reached town that a pack of wolves, driven by hunger, had attacked livestock at several outlying ranches. When Finn didn't appear for their regular Sunday dinner, Lily felt the first stirrings of unease. The following morning, Tommy Miller arrived at school with troubling news. "Miss James," he said gravely before classes began, "Mr. Nash was out checking his cattle yesterday when the wolves came. His horse got spooked and threw him. He's hurt pretty bad. My pa helped bring him home, but he's asking for you." Fear clutched at Lily's heart. "Is there someone who can watch the children today? Ma said she'd come if needed. She figured you'd want to go." Within the hour, Tommy's mother had arrived to supervise the school, and Lily was in a wagon heading toward Finn's ranch, her mind racing with terrible possibilities. The Nash Ranch sat in a valley 5 miles from town, a modest but well-maintained operation with a sturdy main house, barn, and bunkhouse for the 2 ranch hands Finn employed. As the wagon approached, Lily saw smoke rising from the chimney and a figure stepping onto the porch. It was Martha Simmons, the midwife who also served as the town's closest approximation to a doctor. Her expression was grim as she helped Lily down from the wagon. "He's got 3 broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder I've set back in place, and a nasty gash on his leg that's fighting infection. Martha explained as they entered the house. The fever's what worries me most. He's been asking for you something fierce. Finn lay in his bedroom, his normally robust frame looking strangely diminished against the white sheets. His face was flushed with fever, his breathing labored. When Lily approached, his eyes fluttered open, recognition dawning slowly. "Lily," he whispered. "You came." "Of course I came." She sat beside him, taking his hand carefully to avoid disturbing his injured shoulder. "What were you thinking, facing wolves alone?" A ghost of his usual smile crossed his face. "Wasn't planning to face them. Horse had other ideas." Martha showed Lily how to change the poultice on his leg wound and left instructions for managing his fever. "I'll be back tomorrow," she promised. "Keep him still and get fluids into him. That fever breaks by morning. He'll likely pull through fine." After the midwife departed, Lily settled into a chair beside Finn's bed, determined not to leave his side. As evening approached, his fever worsened. He drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes mumbling incoherently, occasionally calling her name with heartbreaking clarity. "Don't go," he pleaded during one lucid moment, his hand gripping hers with surprising strength. "Everyone leaves." "I'm not leaving," she assured him, wiping his brow with a cool cloth. "I'm right here." Through the long night, Lily battled Finn's fever with cool compresses and spoonfuls of water, talking to him constantly whether he was conscious or not. She told him about her childhood in Philadelphia, about her dreams for the school, about the future she had begun to imagine for them together. "You can't leave me now," she whispered as tears traced paths down her cheeks. "Not when I've just found the courage to love again." Toward dawn, Finn's fever finally broke. His breathing eased, and he fell into a natural, healing sleep. Exhausted, Lily laid her head on the edge of his bed, her hand still clasping his, and closed her eyes. When she woke, weak winter sunlight was streaming through the window, and Finn was watching her, his green eyes clear and alert. "You stayed," he said simply. Lily straightened, pushing hair from her face. "I told you I would." "I heard you. Through the fever. I heard everything." His expression grew serious, especially the part about finding the courage to love again. Heat rushed to Lily's cheeks. "You weren't meant to remember that." "Too late." He shifted slightly, wincing at the movement. "I love you too, Lily James. Have since the moment I saw you standing in the middle of the street, looking like you'd just stepped out of a dream I didn't know I was having." The declaration, spoken in the quiet of the morning after such a night of fear, broke through Lily's last defenses. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were tears of relief and joy. "Well," she said, trying to sound stern despite her smile, "if you love me, you'll be more careful with wolves in the future." "Yes, ma'am," he agreed solemnly. "Though I should point out, if I hadn't gotten thrown, you might never have admitted your feelings." "I was getting there," she protested. "Just at my own pace." "Glacier pace," he teased, then grew serious. "Lily, when I was lying there with those wolves circling, all I could think was that I might die without telling you what you mean to me, without asking you the question I've been carrying around for weeks." Her heart skipped a beat. "What question?" "Not asking it now," he said, grimacing as he adjusted his position. "Not while I look half dead and smell worse. But soon, Lily James. Very soon." Martha Simmons returned that afternoon and pronounced Finn on the mend, though she ordered strict bed rest for at least another week. Lily arranged for a substitute teacher and remained at the ranch, sleeping in the spare bedroom and caring for Finn with a dedication that left no doubt about her feelings. By early March, Finn was well enough to return to limited duties around the ranch. The worst of winter was passing, with patches of bare ground appearing beneath the melting snow. On the first truly mild day, he suggested a ride to show Lily his favorite spot on the property. They rode together on gentle horses, moving slowly to accommodate Finn's still-healing ribs. He led her to a rise overlooking the valley, where a lone cottonwood tree stood sentinel. In the distance, mountains still capped with snow rose against a brilliant blue sky. "In summer, this whole valley is green," Finn said as they dismounted. "Wildflowers everywhere. Most beautiful place I've ever seen." "It's beautiful now," Lily replied, taking in the vast landscape with its promise of renewal. Finn took her hand, leading her to the cottonwood tree. "My uncle brought me here when I first came to live with him after my parents died. Told me that no matter what happened, the land endures. Seasons change, storms come and go. But this, he gestured at the valley, this remains. He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. Though he still moved carefully, the strength was returning to his tall frame, the color to his face. I thought I'd lost my chance at family when my parents died, he continued. Figured I'd just work this land alone until it was time to pass it on to someone else. Then you stepped off that stagecoach last fall, and suddenly I could see a different future. Lily's heart began to race as Finn lowered himself carefully to one knee before her. Lily James, I know you came west believing that the frontier was no place for love. I hope I've convinced you otherwise. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a simple gold band. I'm asking you to build a life with me here, to make this ranch a home, to face whatever comes together. Will you marry me? The question hung in the clear spring air. Looking down at Finn, at his hopeful green eyes, his handsome face now so dear to her, Lily saw her entire journey come full circle. She had fled west seeking isolation as protection against loss, only to discover that true protection lay in the very connections she had feared. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, Finn Nash. I will marry you. His smile was radiant as he slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to pull her into a gentle embrace. Against the backdrop of mountains and sky, their kiss sealed a promise that neither had expected to make when Lily first arrived in Sweetwater Springs. When Finn asked as they finally parted, how soon can you be convinced to become Mrs. Nash? Lily laughed, joy bubbling through her like a spring creek. The school term ends in May. Would June be too soon? June would be perfect, he agreed. The valley will be green, just like I promised. They rode back to the ranch house hand in hand, planning their future with the certainty of those who have faced hardship and emerged stronger. Lily knew there would be challenges ahead, harsh winters, difficult years, the inevitable sorrows that life brings. But she also knew, with bone-deep certainty, that facing them together was infinitely better than facing them alone. On a perfect June day, with wildflowers carpeting the valley just as Finn had promised, Lily James became Lily Nash in a ceremony that brought together the entire community of Sweetwater Springs. Her students scattered flower petals along the aisle of the small church, and Tommy Miller proudly served as ring-bearer. Mrs. Hollister wept openly, while Martha Simmons declared it the happiest day Sweetwater Springs had seen in a decade. After the ceremony, the town celebrated with a feast and dancing that lasted well into the night. As twilight painted the Wyoming sky in shades of purple and gold, Finn led his bride away from the festivities to the waiting buggy that would take them to their home, their ranch. Happy, Mrs. Nash? He asked as they rode toward their future. Lily looked at her husband, at the man whose chance intervention had saved her from runaway horses and, more importantly, from the isolation she had mistakenly sought, and smiled. Happier than I ever believed possible, she answered truthfully. When I came west, I thought the frontier was a place where love couldn't survive. You showed me it's actually where love matters most. Finn's arm tightened around her shoulders. The frontier isn't for the solitary, despite what those Eastern writers claim. Out here, we need each other. Always have. As their buggy crested the rise that overlooked their ranch, Lily felt a sense of homecoming more profound than anything she had experienced in Philadelphia. This wild, beautiful country, and the man beside her, had transformed her understanding of what it meant to truly live. The schoolteacher who had stepped off the stagecoach believing that emotional distance was necessary for survival now knew the truth. On the frontier, as in life, love wasn't a luxury but a necessity, the very foundation upon which everything else was built. In the years that followed, the Nash Ranch prospered. Finn's cattle operation expanded, and Lily continued teaching until the birth of their first child, a daughter with her father's green eyes and her mother's determined spirit. 2 sons followed, filling their home with the laughter and chaos of family life. Lily never regretted her decision to come west, nor her choice to open her heart when she had intended to keep it closed. The chance meeting with a cowboy had indeed changed her life forever, not by rescuing her from danger, but by showing her that the greatest courage isn't found in isolation but in the willingness to love despite the risks. And on quiet evenings, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset paint the Wyoming sky, Finn would sometimes take her hand and say, "Remember when you thought the frontier was no place for love?" Lily would smile and lean against his shoulder, their fingers intertwined. I've never been so happy to be proven wrong.